Hey everybody, welcome back to Millennial Homesteading. Sorry I ain't done a video in a while. Things have been a little crazy here coming down to the end of summer and getting stuff ready for fall and everything going on. But I'm back, and today we're going to talk about 2-cycle chainsaws. And really this is for 2-cycle engines, but in this case we're using a chainsaw. Today we're going to go over operation and mixture adjustment, and kind of what to listen for and how to check to make sure your mixture in your chainsaw, both at idle and at full open throttle, is right. So here we have the Craftsman 20-inch S205 chainsaw, and back here we have your mixture screws. You see the L and the H, and on some you'll actually have a throttle one up here, but in this case it doesn't have one. This is a set throttle. You set your throttle on this one by your low mixture. And let's talk about mixture for a minute. Mixture is the ratio between fuel and air. And depending on your engine, you want either a rich mixture or a in-between lean and rich mixture. But you never want to go lean on any engine, because that can cause excessive wear, especially in a 2-cycle engine, because the fuel is also the lubricant for the engine. But a lean fuel system in any car is going to cause overheating and engine premature wear. So we set the low side in between, halfway between lean and rich, and a little bit closer to the rich. The reason being, depending on what your idle is, you can actually turn it to rich a little bit to bring the idle down a little bit if it's idling too fast for you, but you never want to go lean if you can avoid it. And then the high side is what we're going to adjust when the throttle is wide open, and that's going to adjust that lean mixture up there to get the most RPM out of it and the best power and trigger response. And on upper cases, like on a lot of the steels, you'll see throttle up here. And so instead of setting your idle mixture or your idle RPM with your low speed mixture, you will set it with your throttle. That's how you actually set the engine speed on some of these. But in this case, we don't have a throttle mixture. We just have low and high mixtures. So whenever you're doing this, a lot of these weed whackers and chainsaws and stuff like that, you're going to need special tools in order to adjust these, because these aren't round and these aren't hexes. This is actually what they call the Pac-Man version. There's a big one and a small Pac-Man, and it literally looks just like a Pac-Man. Inside there is a round, I don't suppose you should be able to see that. No, not enough light, sorry. There's a little knob in there with a little notch cut into it that this screwdriver is going to fit onto, and then that's how you would adjust your mixtures. You would turn it to the right for less mixture, less fuel. You would turn it to the left for more, and that goes for both of these, and that pretty much goes for any small engine. As far as I know, none of them are reversed. And the good thing about this motor is, if I'm not mistaken, this is actually a Husqvarna engine, a little bit cheaper, with a Craftsman body on it. It's a pretty reliable little engine, pretty strong. It's 46 cc's, which is, it's okay. I'm just a hairy homeowner doing this kind of stuff. If I was doing this every day, I'd probably get either a Steel or a 455 Rancher, but you know, I'm not. So when we first start up the saw, we're going to listen for a few things. We're going to listen for fuel pinging or knocking. We're going to listen for if it's surging up and down, if the idle is, constantly revving and lowering. And we're also going to smell for the fuel. Normally, when you run an engine lean, it'll actually smell kind of warm. The fuel will it'll be like a tangy kind of smell to it. It'll be weird. And it just won't smell right if you're used to running these little 2-cycle engines. Same thing with a weed whacker and most other engines. So what we'll do is we'll start it up and we'll listen to it, and then we'll adjust from there. We'll listen to the RPM, make sure it's nice and smooth. We'll listen for pinging or popping, because if you have too much fuel, it actually bogs the motor down, and in some cases it'll actually start to pop and crackle because it's called loading up. That's where you have so much fuel in the combustion chamber, it's not burning all of it, and it's actually getting your spark plug wet, and it will prematurely ignite. And it'll actually foul out your spark plug and do some serious engine damage if it does ever detonate. So let's try to avoid that if we can. So once we got it up and running, we're going to adjust our low mixture for RPM, richness, and general smoothness. You want the engine to idle smoothly. Once we've achieved that, either going rich or lean, and if you ever got one of these, what we do is we put these in there, we turn them all the way shut, we back them out. In this case, this says 3/4 to 1 turn. Depending on what your saw is, it could be up to a turn and a half, as low as a 1/4 turn, I've seen. It depends on the manufacturer, depends on what kind of carburetor setup you have too. But once we got the low side mixture set and happy and nice and sounding good, then we're going to go over to the high side mixture. Wait for the meat wagon to pass. So then once we're in the high side mixture, then we're going to hold the trigger down, full throttle, and we're going to adjust from there. Now, a few things we're looking for on the high side is we're looking for throttle response, which can also be adjusted on the low side too. If you have kind of like a lag on your when you go from idle to full throttle, just give your low side just a little tweak here and there, and just try it one way and then the other way and see which way is better. But on your high side too, you're also looking for good solid RPM. I believe in this one here, I think it's 10,000 RPM is max RPM for this saw. You're also looking for power. So when you're going into your cut, you want to have good power. If you need more power and you pull this trigger down, you want to have that saw give you more RPM, providing you're not, pushing so hard on the saw you actually stall it out. But a good running saw, you shouldn't have any problems. You shouldn't have to push down on it or to keep pulling out of it to cut. If you're cutting something and your saw starts to bog down and you're not really pushing on it, you need to get your carburetor adjusted. You need to get your mixtures in order. Unless you're running if you've got a 33cc saw and you're running a 32-inch bar, you've got way too much chain and bar for that little motor. This is what came on this chainsaw, so I know that this chainsaw is rated for a 20-inch bar. The other thing too is your chain. If your chain's not sharp, obviously your engine's going to struggle more to cut. And if you're cutting really dry wood, drywood's harder. It's not going to cut as easy. But if you're cutting fresh pine or softwood or something like that and you're having engine problems and it's bogging down, you need to get your mixtures in order. So you need to start with your idle screw. Always start from the bottom, work your way up. Start with your idle screw, and then once you got your idle in order, then you go to your high side screw. You're looking for throttle response, you're looking for engine speed, and you're looking for power in the cut. Now, don't ever adjust one of these when you're cutting with it. If you're in the middle of a cut, stop, put your chain brake on, pull it out of the cut, and then tweak it a little bit. Take it out, put it on the ground, put your foot in it, put the bar in a vise if you have to, and then do your high side mixture again. Tweak it a little way one way or the other way, and then go out and back and cut. It can be a lot of redundant and back and forthness, but it's the only real safe way to adjust these when you're doing power cut. And unfortunately, one way versus the other, it's going to sound great at high RPM, but it may have no power in the cut because she's running lean. Or she may have all the power in the cut, and then she stumbles like crazy trying to get up to high RPM. And what you got to do is you just got to find your mixtures between high and low. It's a balancing act between high and low. The other thing too is if you have your low set and then you set your high, sometimes what I've seen is you'll let off the trigger and she'll come back down to RPM and she'll just stall out. It's just too low. Then you go back and you got to readjust your low. It's a balancing act. The other thing too is if your air filter is clogged, and I have seen this on this saw once when I was cutting up an old tree, if your air filter is clogged with dirt and dust and all that stuff, it's going to cause your saw to run it's going to cause your saw to run rich, because now it's acting like a choke. You're not flowing as much air that your motor needs, and your motor's still demanding the same amount of air. So it's going to get more fuel, and it's going to run rich, and then that's going to mess up your adjustments. So it's going to act weird. It's going to start stumbling and stalling, and it's going to start, sputtering when you go to give it throttle. And what's doing is it's just getting too much fuel. So then you clean out your air filter, you go back and you make sure that your adjustments are still fine. Don't ever try to make adjustments without checking your air filter first. And make sure that you got fuel in the tank too, because low fuel will cause the saw to act weird if you've ever ran one. Low fuel will cause stumbling and sputtering a little bit. because, you know, it's sucking air through the carburetor, sucking air through the lines or whatever have you. So always check your fuel before you start making adjustments. So air filter, check your fuel level, and just check to make sure that your fuel is still good too. Don't put bad fuel in there, you know, thinking, oh, I'll just get rid of it, because it's going to cause a lot more problems than it will good. So always check to make sure your fuel mixture is good. I don't mix my own fuel. I get a ethanol-free fuel from Walmart. It's that hybrid 50-40 mix. It's a purple can. It's made by SEF, and it's worked good. I run it in my chainsaws. I run it in my blowers. I run it in my weed whackers, and I haven't had a problem out of them. There might be a little bit of adjustment for it. This is a 40-to-1 saw, and I can run. See if it says on there. She's not going to focus. This is a 40-to-1 saw. I can run 50-to-1 or 40-to-1 here, that hybrid fuel, and it doesn't do any problems with it. I did have to adjust for it just a little bit, but it was nothing I couldn't handle. Nothing you guys can't handle either. So when you're doing these, always keep in mind safety. Gloves, keep your hands away from the chain. Make sure the chain is in an area that's not going to, you know, rotate into a fan or you or anything else. If you can, put this in a vise. Put the bar in a vise right through here. That way the chain has the ability to rotate. You don't have to worry about the saw falling off the table or something. Just always be safe when you're doing this stuff. A chainsaw will hurt you in so many different ways, and before you even know it. Because remember, you are the softest thing in this shop. You always will be. It's the way it's just going to be. Tools are going to hurt you because they're harder than you. Saws are going to hurt you because they're harder than you. Even being dumb or careless in a shop is going to hurt you. So always be safe. Always take the precautions that is going to make sure that you come home at night. You know, if you're working on a car, you're going to put jack stands under it, right? Because, well, I don't know about you. I don't trust jacks. And I got a daughter and a wife to come home to, and they're going to be pretty pissed off if I come home in pieces. So, because they don't make spare parts for me. But always take the precautions needed to be safe. So if you guys have any questions about small motor work or anything like that, we can get into it a little bit more about carburetors and the difference between 2-cycle and 4-cycle, or 2-stroke and 4-stroke. You know, I'm here to teach you guys, but you know, I got to know what you guys want to see. So, hope this helps a little bit. Y'all be careful out there. God bless.